We all feel it in this decade. Our country is fading. The democracy and institution we grew up are rusting and crumbling before our own eyes. But if you had to pick a single moment in recent history where that decline truly began, where would you point? If you ask me, I put my money on January 21, 2010, and it didn't happen at the ballot box. It happened at the Supreme Court, the very place that's supposed to be democracy's strongest defense. With one ruling, one razor-thin vote, and politics was never the same. Today, I'm breaking down Citizens United and how that turned money into speech and how it handed billionaires more power than millions of voters, and why this ruling might be the biggest political scam of our lifetime. So stick with me, because I'll show you exactly how this decision reshaped our society and our institutions. And then you can decide for yourself, does it really make sense that corporations donating millions is the same as individual exercising free speech? Let's dive in. First, let's go back to that January morning in 2010. 9 justices walked into the Supreme Court to decide Citizens United versus FEC. The question seemed simple. Could a conservative nonprofit air a film critical of Hillary Clinton during the 2008 election season? Yes, I know that name gives a lot of people the yips and yikes these days, but let's try to stay on tracks here. I promise I won't mention her again. So here's what really happened behind those marble walls. 5 conservative justices, Kennedy, Robert, Scalia, Thomas, and Alito, decided that corporations are people. And since money equals speech, corporations could now spend unlimited amounts to influence your elections. 4 justices, Stevens, Ginsburg, Breyer, and Sotomayor, warned this would corrupt democracy itself. Justice Stevens wrote in his dissent, "Court's ruling threatened to undermine the integrity of elected institutions." But yes, with just one vote, that's all it took. The majority claimed this would increase speech and make democracy stronger. They were dead wrong. And now that 15 years has passed, the evidence is stacking up against them. Let's take a look. Here's where it gets ugly. In 2008, 2 years before Citizens United, outside groups spent $574 million trying to influence federal elections. That was already a lot of money. But here's what happened next. In 2012, it increased to $1.3 billion, more than doubled. In 2016, it went up to $2.1 billion, another 38% increase. In 2020, they spent $3.3 billion, another 36% increase. And in 2024, the amount spent by these special interest groups came out to be $4.5 billion. That's not growth. That's an explosion in just 14 years. Outside political spending increased by nearly 800%. But here's the number that should terrify you. In 2008, the top 100 political donors accounted for 1.5% of all federal election spending. By 2020, those same top 100 donors controlled nearly 15% of all political spending. Think about that. 100 people out of 330 million Americans now control 15% of the money that decides who represents you in Congress and who sits in the White House. Let me put this in perspective. If you make $50,000 a year, you need to work for 20,000 years to match what some billionaires spend in a single election cycle. Your voice isn't just being drowned out, it's being destroyed. Now, let me show you how this plays out in the real world. Because this isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. Remember the Koch brothers? After Citizens United, they built a political network that spent over $400 million in 2012 alone. But here's what's really insidious. They didn't just buy ads, they bought policy. Climate change denial became Republican orthodoxy not because of science or public opinion, but because of the Koch network made it a requirement for any politician who wanted their money. They literally purchased an entire political position. And it worked. Political scientists found that Citizens United gave Republicans about 5-point boost in a competitive state legislative races. That doesn't sound like much, but it was enough to flip control of multiple states' houses and redraw congressional maps that locked in Republican advantages for a decade. Now, just to be clear, I am an independent, but these are just historical facts for the last 15 years. But the corruption goes deeper. After Citizens United, something called dark money exploded. These are political groups that don't have to disclose their donors. In 2006, dark money groups spent $5.2 million on federal elections, and by 2020, they spent $750 million. That means $750 million was spent to influence your elections, and you have no idea who paid for it. It could be foreign corporations, it could be enemies of America. You never ever know. Because Citizens United made sure you don't have the right to know. Here's the part that breaks my heart as someone who believes in democracy. Young Americans, well, they are walking away. Harvard's Institute of Politics found that 64% of people under 30 feel more fear than hope about the future of American democracy. Another survey showed that only 27% of 18 to 25-year-olds So almost 1/3 strongly believe democracy is the best form of government. And honestly, I don't blame them. If you're 25 years old, working 2 jobs, drowning in student debt, and watching billionaires pour hundreds of millions into super PACs while your student loan payment gets deferred again, why wouldn't you feel like the system is rigged? When Elon Musk can spend over $290 million on a single election, more than most Americans will earn in multiple lifetimes, and when you're struggling to afford rent, what does one person, one vote even mean anymore? The promise of democracy is that your voice matters as much as anyone else. Citizens United broke that promise. It replaced one person, one vote with $1, 1 decibel. But here's what really gets me. The Supreme Court didn't just get this wrong. They got it backwards. The majority claimed that unlimited corporate spending would lead to more speech and better informed voters. Instead, it leads to more noise and more confusion. When billionaires can flood the airwaves with misleading ads, real information gets lost in the chaos. They claimed it would increase competition in the marketplace of ideas. Instead, it created monopolies. When one side can outspend the other 10-1, that's not competition. That's domination. That's David versus Goliath, but David is too poor to even afford a slingshot. They claimed it would strengthen democracy. Instead, it's killing it slowly, one election at a time. And here's the kicker. Most Americans agree with me. Polls consistently shows that 75 to 80% of Americans, including majorities of both Republicans and Democrats, thinks Citizens United should be overturned. But it doesn't matter what we think, because we don't have enough money to make our voices heard. You can only get closer to the lawmakers if you have the moolah, or else the doors remains closed. The big lesson here is this. Citizens United wasn't about free speech. It was about whose speech gets heard. And the answer is simple. Whoever has the money. For me personally, this case represents the moment when American democracy stopped being about we the people and started being about we the loaded. I see every day how hard it is for ordinary Americans to get ahead. The last thing they need is a political system that's literally for sale to the highest bidder. If you can take away one lesson from videos on this channel, most of the time it will be this. Many things that are wrong in our societies can be fixed by addressing 2 fundamental issues. First, we must go after the source. Always fix the incentive structure of a system. We humans are naturally motivated by incentives, and if the incentive structure is right, then the decision making and the result will turn out better. Second, we have to fix the fiat system that allows the powerful, those who own assets, and those closest to the money printer to continue benefiting while the average Americans who save in fiat continue to see their quality of life decline and their saying in government diminish. The truth is, Citizens United can be overturned. It would take a constitutional amendment which requires 2/3 of both House of Congress and 3/4 of state legislatures. It's hard, but it's not impossible. Other constitutional amendments have fixed Supreme Court's mistakes before, but it won't happen unless enough people get angry about what were stolen from us that day in January of 2010. So here's my challenge to you. Stop pretending this is normal. Stop accepting that billionaires should have more political power than you do. And stop believing anyone who tells you that unlimited corporate money is the same thing as your right of free speech. Democracy isn't supposed to be an auction. It's supposed to be a conversation among equals. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. If this opened your eyes like I hope it did, hit the subscribe button. We need to keep talking about this until something changes. Have a good one.